It's hard to call a loss inexcusable in the NFL because every Sunday comes with injuries, weather, mistakes, and weird bounces. But some defeats are so avoidable, so on brand in the worst way that they stick to a franchise like a stain. And that's exactly what the Steelers' 13-6 loss to the Browns felt like, not just a bad day, but a gut punch that lands differently when you look at the setup. Pittsburgh walked into Week 17 riding real momentum. They had just won 3 straight games, surged to 9-6, and put themselves in position to control the AFC North with 2 weeks left. That wasn't hype, that was the standings. It had been, as Aaron Rodgers described it after the prior win, playoff-type football for them for weeks, and the results backed it up. They were on a climb, not a collapse. And then Cleveland happened. This wasn't a juggernaut Browns team. This was a Browns team sitting at 4-12 after the game, snapping a 4-game losing streak and earning its first divisional win of the season. This was a game where, with one win, Pittsburgh could have claimed the AFC North title right there. Instead, the Steelers walked off in the rain without a touchdown, losing by a full score in a rivalry game that felt like it should have been a statement, truly. The humiliation isn't just the final score. It's how the game played out like a slow leak, and Pittsburgh never found the courage or the clarity to plug it. The Browns hit them early. Shedeur Sanders threw for 186 yards and a touchdown, and Cleveland put the only touchdown on the board in the first quarter, going up 10-0. Pittsburgh answered with field goals, 2 from Chris Boswell, and went into halftime down 10-6. And from there, it turned into the exact kind of game the Steelers always swear they can win. Ugly, close, late, and decided by a handful of critical downs. But when those downs arrived, Pittsburgh blinked. Late in the game, down 4 with 2:16 left, the Steelers took over 80 yards from the end zone and went 4 and out, no points, no extension of the drive, just a dead possession when you needed your season to show up. That set up a Browns field goal to stretch it to 13-6. Then Pittsburgh drove again and reached the Cleveland 7-yard line, only to come away empty after 3 straight incompletions. 2 trips with the game right there, and the Steelers produced 0 touchdowns all afternoon. That's what made it feel so brutal. The Browns didn't dominate Pittsburgh with offensive fireworks. Cleveland had 262 total yards. They just did enough, and then watched Pittsburgh waste the chances that winners usually cash in. Now, I'm not going to pretend the Steelers were healthy or perfectly set up. They weren't, not even close. The Week 17 injury report had TJ Watt ruled out again with a lung issue, Calvin Austin III ruled out with a hamstring injury, and 2 cornerbacks ruled out. And the Steelers were also missing wide receiver DK Metcalf, who was serving a 2-game suspension that had been upheld on appeal. That's a real list, and it matters. Then, during the game itself, tight end Darnell Washington broke his arm in the first half. So yes, injuries and suspensions were stacked on top of each other, and the Steelers were improvising. No sane person can ignore that. But here, the problem. That context is the reason this loss is so hard to defend, not the reason it's easy to excuse. Because this franchise under Mike Tomlin is built on a very specific identity. Next man up, tough it out, find a way, win ugly. Tomlin himself had just praised his team's fight a week earlier, saying they weren't perfect, that adversity existed, even some created by them, but they didn't blink. That's the standard they sell. That's the mythos. And against Cleveland, they blinked anyway. A national writer at Sports Illustrated framed this Browns loss as one of the most inexcusable of Tomlin's era, even after listing all those qualifiers: Metcalf out, Watt's lung issue, Austin out, Washington injured, and a banged-up secondary. That's important because it shows the core argument is they had no excuses. It's that they had the same kind of adversity they always claimed to thrive in, and still produced a no-touchdown performance in a division-clinching spot. So when people call it humiliating, it's not because Pittsburgh got run off the field. It's because Pittsburgh got handed multiple chances to win, in a game that was still right there, and they played like a team afraid of its own moment. And the timing makes it worse. Coming into this matchup, Pittsburgh's 3-game winning streak created a little calm, a little silence from the loudest critics. Sports Illustrated described it as a brief honeymoon for Tomlin after 3 straight wins, a stretch that temporarily cooled the same old questions about his tenure. Let me be clear, that honeymoon isn't a literal vacation, it's a metaphor for a short period where winning kept the heat off. Because the moment the Steelers fell in Cleveland, the heat came right back, and now it's not just frustration, it's fear. And the fear is straightforward. This kind of loss doesn't just hurt feelings, it creates consequences. Pittsburgh's loss dropped them to 9-7 and left the AFC North to be decided in Week 18 against Baltimore, with the winner taking the division title. In other words, the Steelers went from clinch today to you better win next week, and that's what trouble looks like in real time. Now about the Tomlin controversy that has been circulating, the idea that he's been in some honeymoon, not putting in effort, and the Steelers are sliding because the coach is comfortable. Here, what can be stated as fact. Major commentary has framed his post-win stretch as a honeymoon period, and then immediately criticized his decisions in the Browns game, particularly how conservative Pittsburgh was late while trailing. Beyond that, claims about personal travel or literal vacations aren't supported by the game reporting itself, and shouldn't be treated like confirmed information. But the criticism about coaching choices, that part is very real, and it comes straight from what happened on the field. Sports Illustrated pointed out that Tomlin punted on 4th and 5 at the Cleveland 46 and 4th and 6 at the Pittsburgh 47 in the final quarter while trailing, arguing those choices reduced Pittsburgh's odds and reflected a familiar conservative approach. You don't have to agree with every win probability model to understand the basic point. When your offense has already gone a full game without a touchdown, and you're chasing points late, punting is basically asking your defense to rescue you twice. And that leads to the honest part, the part fans don't always want to say out loud, because it sounds like betrayal. In my view, the most inexcusable piece of this loss isn't one dropped pass or one missed kick. It's the way the Steelers looked like they were coached to not lose instead of coached to win. You can't preach a hard-nosed identity for 17 weeks, build your team to survive chaos, and then play scared when the division is sitting on the table. Yes, the roster was depleted. Yes, the weather was rough. Yes, the Browns' defense deserves credit. But Pittsburgh still had the ball in the red zone with a chance to take the game, and they finished the day with 6 points. That's not random. That's a failure of execution, planning, and situational aggression, the exact areas a head coach owns. Mike Tomlin didn't throw the incompletions. He didn't miss the reads. He didn't line up on the field. But he is the one constant in how the Steelers approach moments like this. And this loss is a loud reminder that leadership isn't only about culture slogans. It's about the decisions you make when the game is begging you to be brave. If Pittsburgh ends up in trouble now, if Week 18 turns into a coin flip fight for the division instead of a celebration, it won't be because the Browns were unbeatable. It will be because the Steelers wasted control of their own fate. And the man who has to wear that more than any single player is Mike Tomlin.